As I said earlier, going to use the password box, and basically let's name it parts box for the password. Let's add some padding. For the background should be transparent, border thickness 0, and font family the same thing that we have done earlier, and font size 16. Center vertically. This is for testing purposes. I'm gonna set the password character, and for the validation error template null. And with the same manner, we have to set the foreground and the caret brush. Now underneath the border, we have to add the error message displayed below the field, as we have done in the other apps. Therefore, I'm gonna wrap the border with a stack panel. Underneath the border, we have to add the text block. Let's set for the margin 10 top. For the font size, small font size. For the foreground, it should be error. And for the style, text regular. Now for the visibility, we have to add for it a converter. Why? Because it should be visible every time we have an error. We're gonna use basically the binding from the dependency property error message. And we have to define the converter. We're going to show this particular error message whenever this error message is null. Therefore, we have to create a new converter. Let's call it null to visibility converter. Create it later on. And for the text, it's gonna be binding from the error message, and we have to set the relative source, the text wrapping to wrap. All right. Now let's go ahead and define this particular converter. If the value is null, we have to assign the visibility and collapsed. Otherwise, it should be visible. As simple as this. I'm gonna build the module. We have to add it here. Now we have to come back to the code behind to define the two-way binding for the password. It's gonna be a public static class. Let's call it password box assist. Now we have to use the technique of attached properties, and we have to define the first attached property that will hold the password string and be data bound. Now, whenever this bound password change, we have to run a function. Let's call it onBound password changed. Next attached property is going to be used to indicate whether we should wire up the binding behavior on a password. And whenever this bind password change, we're going to run another function. Now let's define the getters and setters for bound password as well as bind password. It's very simple. We have just to do set value and get value with the same manner for bound password. Now we have to implement the onBind password changed. We're gonna make an error return if this dependency object is not a password or this dependency object is null and we don't have the value from getBindPassword. Next, we have to temporarily detach the password changed handler to avoid re-entry. And let's call this event handler handle password changed, yet to be implemented. Next, we're gonna set the password to the box by setting box and password new password. However, we have to do it in an effective manner. We're not going to attach this new value every time. We're going to set this password if we are not already in the middle of the process of updating this value. Therefore, I'm going to create a private attached property. Let's call it updating password. It is an internal attached property used to avoid recursive updates between password and bound password. And let's add to it the getter and setter. If we are not in the middle of updating the password by using getUpdatingPassword, in this case, we can do box.password equal new password. Then we have to reattach the handler password changed by using handle password changed. I'm gonna do this later on. Now for the method onBind password changed, the dependency object is not a password. We don't have the value from getBindPassword. In this case, we're gonna make an early return. Next, we have to detach momentarily the handler for the password as shown here. And we have to do box and attach password value, but this is not optimal. Therefore, I'm gonna add here another private attached property. Let's call it updating password. And let's set for it the getter and setter. In this case, we can do afterward, we have to reattach the handler. For the function onBindPassword, it's going to be called when the bind password attached property is toggled on a password box. It's going to be responsible for attaching and detaching the password changed events. First things first, we need to check if the dependency object is not a password box. In this case, we're going to do an early return. Now, if the password has already been bound, we're going to detach the event handler And if it needs to be bind, we're going to attach a new event handler. As shown here, was bound. And for the need to bind, if was bound, we're going to detach basically the event. And if it needs to bind, we're going to attach the event. We need to check if the sender is not a password box. In this case, we're going to do here an error return. Next, we need to set updating password. Now we are in the process of updating the password. Afterward, we have to push the current password into the attached property. And we have to set updating password to false. And that's pretty much it for this workaround that we have called password box assist. Now we have to come back to the text field and use it in the password box. Underneath, we have to set the bind password to true. Now we are activating basically this to bind the password. Next, we have to set the text that should be bound to the password from the dependency property text. And we have to specify the relative source as well as the update source trigger and the on validation errors and notify on validation error. Sometimes you have to build the entire project in order to make the errors disappear. And right now we can handle this password box as any normal text box under the code behind of our text field. First things first, I would like to annotate this particular class, which is text field, to allow XAML parser to treat the autocomplete as the content property, but it's going to enhance performance, autocomplete template. Now let's come back to the function that we have implemented earlier. We have to attach basically here the focus on event handler to handle animation and then change the background, the border and whatnot. It's not yet implemented, but I'm going to call it attach focus event for text box. Whenever this text box is focused, we're going to animate the label. And once it's not focused, we're going to animate again the label. And if we are under a normal text box, we're going to use this particular text box. Those are functions we're going to implement later on. Generate those functions. We have to set, first of all, the target label. Under the text field, we have set the target label by default to the autocomplete, all right? Now we have to change it to the normal text box, text label, and target text box or normal box. For the value of has focus that we have done as a dependency property, has focus to true, has focus changed, invoke this, and we have to animate the label. I'm gonna add it as a function. We need to bring the label from the bottom position to the up position. Instead of calling it animate label, it has to be animate label up. Now for the other case, has lost focus for text box, what we have to do, we need basically to animate the label down and to set has focus attached property to false and invoke has focus changed by passing false as an argument. And I prefer to do here, instead of doing is null or empty, to do is null or white space. And here it should be, instead of text, it has to be part and normal text box and text to access directly the value. I'm going to set first of all the duration to 200 milliseconds for the animation duration. I'm going to move the Y position from the current position to -24, for example, the target value to -24, the duration is the duration, and the ease-in function, ease-in out. If you have noticed in the material design, it's not going to be moved to the top, but it has to be slightly to the left. Therefore, I'm going to add another animation. I'm going to call it X animation with the same values, but instead of 2, let's just do -4, just slightly to the left. Next, we have to apply animations if transform exists and begin animation as shown here. With the same manner, we're going to do the X animation. And finally, we're going to animate label background color from transparent to background to create a cutout look. And this is not done actually in the WPF outline text field, which looks a little bit off to me. Now we're going to animate from the any background to transparent. It needs to be transparent under the text field, but when the label should be on top of the text field, it should be the background of the label. It's gonna look better than the WPF material design. And if you don't do this animation, in the dark theme, it's gonna be off. Therefore, I have created this dependency property background color that's going to be consistent across the entire application. Now we have to animate the label background as I said earlier. Here we're going to animate it from colors transparent to the background color of the current theme, yet to be implemented. And for this function, I don't want to add it here. I'm going to copy this. Instead of this implementation, I'm going to add this in the UI helper. I'm going to copy this, move to theme switcher, and let's add those two functions. Now for the implementation, we have to check if the application and current and resources, we have to access the resource by providing the key material design and background resource is a solid color brush. If we have this value, we're gonna return background brush and we have to access the color. As a fallback color, let's do, for example, light gray. Let's come back to this navbar. Now let's come back to this implementation here. We have to do theme switcher, get theme background color. To animate the background color, it's very simple. To do so, I would like to store the background brush under a private field in text field. I'm gonna put it right before the initializer. Why we did this? Because as soon as the text field has been initialized from the constructor, going to attach a default transparent brush to this label brush. The color of label brush background from color. And we have to animate new color animation. It's going to be from color to color and duration. Let's do 200 milliseconds and easing out as easing function. Next, we're going to begin the animation. Now for the animate down, it's going to be the opposite. With the same manner, let's assign the duration. For the Y animation, it should be to 0. And for the X animation, instead of 0, it should be 4. 4 because we need to create extra space between the label and the left corner of the text field. And we're going to animate the label, the Y position and X position, going to animate from the background of the container to color transparent. Now we have to implement use normal text box. We have to set basically the visibility of the normal text box to visible and autocomplete text password to collapse and the other one for collapse. The same manner that we have to do for the other password and combo box. Let's handle the password first, attach focus and lost focus and use password box. Let's create those functions. For the implementation of use password box, we need to hide the normal text field, the combo box as well, and we have to show the password box. Now with the same manner, we have to animate the label up and animate the label down. Now for the autocomplete, it is a little bit different. We have to attach the event for focus and lost focus, and we have to use the autocomplete, and we have to handle basically the updates when it comes to the dropdown. Let's create those functions. Let's start with the use autocomplete. We're gonna hide the password box, the text, the normal text box, and we're gonna show the combo box. With the same manner, whenever the autocomplete or the combo box is focused, we're going to animate the label up and attach the current or the target label to this combo box. And if it's focused, we need to update the dropdown. Let's create this function. Now with the same manner, if the text or autocomplete is focused, we're going to animate the label up and we have to set the targets for the text label to autocomplete combo box. And when lost focus, we have to bring the label down. After bringing the label down, we need to hide the autocomplete dropdown. Now we have to implement how to refresh the list of the dropdown. We have to attach basically the handler for the autocomplete text box, and we have to add this particular handler. I'm gonna use this abstract class text box base called text changed event. Whenever the text inside the combo box changes, what we have to do, we need to update the dropdown. Let's create the event, text changed event handler. Instead of this, I'm going to create another function. Let's call it update dropdown. Create this function. We need to check if we have the suggestions, and let's store it under has suggestions. Not null, first of all. Let's do suggestions and any. Basically, it's going to determine if we have some elements under the suggestions list. In other words, the suggestions is not empty. Next, we need to check if we have some text to deal with. Not null or white space, which is correct, from the autocomplete part autocomplete text box and text. Next, we're going to only open the suggestions drop down when there is a text, at least one suggestion, by doing as shown here, has suggestions. Now we need to implement on selection changed. Basically, it's going to be called when an item in the suggestions list is selected, and we have to notify the subscribers. First of all, we have to check if we are under a combo box. In this case, we have triggered the event. Now, as soon as the text box is initialized under the init function, after initializing the component, as we have said earlier, we have to set, which is correct, 100%. This is what I want to do. But instead, I would like to use here color transparent, or to create a new color, solid color brush from transparent color. And we have to set the text label background, text label and background to label background brush. Now we have to attach the focus for all text fields. I'm going to create this function as attach focus event, yet to be implemented, and for the other events, lost focus event. Let's generate the functions. Let's implement the first one. In case of normal text field, attach focus for text field, and so on for the rest. Attach focus for autocomplete and for password box. With the same manner, we have to implement lost focus event. All right, let's continue. Now, let's say, for example, the developer needs to use right off the bat the autocomplete. In this case, we have to attach the updates dropdown event handler to ensure dropdown updates when typing. And whenever this component is ready, by doing onloaded, to ensure the correct visual mode is chosen. It's going to be a safety measure for design time or late changes. In this case, we have to use the normal text box, and so on for the rest. And I guess that's pretty much it for the implementation of the text field. Now it's time to check if we have done this correctly under the preview. Let's come back to the other preview that we have implemented earlier, I guess for the dialog. And instead of using the material design WPF, we're going to use our own text field from CoreUI. Now we have just to fill in the blanks by setting the border radius, medium border radius. For the label, string resources, and email, we have to import this one, I guess. You can see here our text field. Now for the text, it's going to be basically the same thing. I'm going to copy this part. Now we can use the leading icon by doing CoreUI. Now I have just to put here the components for leading icon. I'm going to use SVGL. Now for the width, 20, as well as the height. For the margin, vertical alignment, it has to be center. Now for the override for the color, I would like to do it in a fancy way if you'd like. If we have an error, we're going to make it as red as possible. If we don't have an error, it's going to be with the default one. Of course, I'm going to use a converter for this. CoreUI images. Just going to do here images. And let's choose here email. We have the SVG image. It is a custom one. You can see basically the resemblance here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now let's create the converter that we're going to call it bool to color converter. And you have to define two colors as dependencies. Whenever this input value is true, what color are we using? And when this input is false, what color are we using? Now we have to get the brush according to the value. If value is Boolean, B and B. Now we have to check if this is a solid brush, solid color and color. Otherwise, we have to set the transparent or gray, if you will. That's basically the converter. Build the entire project. Let's use the namespace, for example, converter. Now for the false color or the false brush, it's going to be from material theme and error. And for the true color or the true brush, it's going to be success. It should be the complete opposite. Let's provide here the key. Let's call it bool to color. All right. Now, once attaching the converter, it's going to change from this color to gray. It should be from the data context, which is the view model. And we have to add here as error. We're going to do it later on. Relative source, which is here, we have to specify the type. It's going to be CoreUI text field. And we have to attach the converter. We need to come back to the view model. I'm going to add another observable property. has email error equal false. And we have to override the method, which is partial method. Partial, it means that it has been auto-generated, which is on email changed to make the validation. Now, if this email changed, if it's not provided, it should be true. Has email error is true. Now let's come back to the preview form. It shouldn't be like this. It should be has email error. Otherwise, it's not going to be updated. Come back to the form and paste it here. All right, let's see if it's working fine. And I have to delete this particular one. All right, finger crossed. Let's see the preview. Here we go. We already have an error and we have the floating label. It's floating, which is fine. Okay, we still have the default validation from WPF. We need actually to disable the template for this container. I'm gonna close the preview and to investigate. Let's come back to the text field and we have to add under the top of the tag, we have to disable the template for the error message. Let's see if it's gonna work. Open the dialog. Now it's focused and it's gone, but I think that we don't have the error. Something is wrong. Let's see if we do have some kind of binding issues. There is no binding issues. Now, since we are trying to preview the text field, let's preview all the text fields that we have done under this particular section. And let's come back to the main view model. I'm going to add some observer properties for the email, password, and the visibility of the password, and the suggestions. I would like to simulate basically on search query change from the partial function. I'm going to delay this operation and we're going to continue with this callback function. And let's set the new suggestions from the mock data suggested products. And you have to pass here the value and you have to map this to product preview. You have to add another argument, task scheduler from current synchronization context to toggle the visibility of the password with the same manner. Let's add the password field and I will set some padding or spacing between the text fields and the resource section of the stack panel. Now, in order to toggle the visibility of the password on and off, once clicking on this particular icon, we have to create for it a converter, bool to text field type converter. And this is basically the hell on earth when it comes to converters. Every time you want to do some stuff, you have to create a converter. Now we have to check if this value is secure password or not. By toggling the value of is password visible, it's going to be not secured when it is visible. If it's not visible, it is secured. Build the entire project and come back to the form. And we have to use it here. Here we have to attach the converter. We click on this particular icon. We have to change the visibility. Therefore, under this trailing icon content, let's add an event under this particular border, because we need to increase a little bit the area where the user is going to click on. It's going to be on mouse down, and we have to provide this particular callback or event handler. And let's show another text field. I'm going to fold this section and show the autocomplete text field. For the autocomplete, we have set the background to this value, surface, border radius to simulate what we have done under the other app, and the suggestions from the view model. The label is search, border radius 25, and for the text binding, it's going to be from the view model as well. And when clicking on this icon, what we have to do, we're going to name it to on search. And in the same manner, if we have an error, we're going to change the color of the icon. All right now let's come back to the code behind. It should be on toggle password visible, and for this one on search click. For this one, I'm just going to show a message box, and I would like to add here the value that we have done in the search input. I'm going to create private read only main view model of type main view model. I'm going to assign it here instead. It should be required main view model equal main view model, and the context is main view model. Let's do something like view model and search query. To toggle the password, we have just to do view model, toggle password visible. Let's see if we don't have any binding errors. Open dialog. We're gonna fix showing the errors later on. I think that we have some binding issues. All right, here we go. Now we don't have the has error under the form. All the relative source has to be user control, all right? Next, under the main view model, this is actually wrong. We have to do value is or length equal 0, all right? I'm gonna create another observable property for the value of, let's just use, or let's just simulate the error for the email, all right? For the password, it doesn't matter. Or let's just do both, I don't know, as email error, string and empty, all right? And password error. Now in the code behind, main view model and errors changed. Let's call this sender. I'm going to assign the value email error and password error from the errors of the validation. Let's check what we have done under the validation section. Email is required and password is required. We're gonna just show this particular error messages. We're gonna switch on the property name. All right, it's correct. Now, name of main view model. He said it should be view model and email. The view model and email error, I think it's overkill. Instead of this, we will do view model and get validation error message. Name of view model and email. With the same manner, we're gonna do the other one for the password. It should be nullable. This is the generated code. Come back to the main view model. It should be nullable. And in the form section, let's say, for example, under the normal text field for the error message, data context and error message, make sure it is user control. Email error, I'm gonna copy this in the password. All right, let's see if it's gonna work. Click on dialog preview, open dialog, and here we go. We have the red container or the red border because the value is empty. And you can see here, email is required. We have to, I don't know what we have done here actually. Oh yeah. In password, it should be password error. Password is required. I think that you're going to do it. I don't like actually this particular font is very huge. Let's go to the text field. I think that we have done this the wrong way. It has to be small font size, not small icon size. Yep, here we go. Now you can see the pretty much the animation. All right, let's check this one. To make it work, we have to use the other function, new value and alt value, and it's not going to look good anyway. I'm going to delete it. And delete has email error. Come back to the form. We don't need actually this particular converter. Let's delete it. And let's keep the implementation of bool to color converter. I don't know, maybe you're gonna use this in this tutorial. Let's not delete it. Instead of this, I'm gonna copy the same color from here. I'm gonna stop the preview for now. We don't care about the has error. The same here. All right, let's show the preview. This is a very long section of the tutorial, but you have to do it the right way. Open the dialog. Okay. Okay, we have a problem. Okay, I thought that we had a problem. Now, email is required. Let's see the password. Now it's secured. We can toggle if it's visible or not. Let's check the autocomplete. Let's say, for example, S. We have the sunglasses, headphones, lipstick, and washing machine. These are just the default representation of the suggestions. And if we click, for example, on this magnify icon, we're gonna see SVG images image clicked performing search with this search query. All right. Now I have just noticed something. I don't know if you have noticed. Let's close the preview. Let's close the modal, and let's open the modal. All right. I don't know why. For some reason, it does not validate at first attempt. All right. Let's fix this kind of bug, if you will. I'm gonna move this particular section before assigning the data context. Let's fold this. When the component is ready, instead of this, I'm gonna copy this particular section, fold this one, and I will delete this, this. I think it's going to solve the problem. Run the preview. Now it won't validate basically the text field unless we have typed something on the text field. Now we have some data. Let's remove this, and email is required. This is what we want. And for the password, the same thing. And here we have the suggestions. And it was updated sunglasses. All right. I think that's pretty much it for this video or this section of implementing text field. As you can see here, we have done an extensive work in order to implement the text field component. Now it has a lot of advantages. Under the dark theme and light theme, you're gonna see that once we complete actually the application and you see the final implementation at the end, and it's worth it, to be honest. You can use it as a reusable component in all different projects. And it has the clickable icons, which is basically the main reason why I opt in this particular solution. Now for the next tutorial, we will implement the async image. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one, and happy coding.